London, a global hub, a melting pot of cultures, a city that thrives on its energy. The morning of July 7th, 2005 was no different. The sun shone, the air buzzed, millions went about their day. Commuters packed the tube, late for work. Tourists crowded Oxford Street, eager for deals. Laughter filled the parks, children chased pigeons. It was a normal summer day. London felt alive. The city's heart beat strong. In the cafes, artists sketched, their faces intense. Writers hunched over laptops, lost in worlds of their own. On stages across town, actors rehearsed, their voices echoing. Each corner had a story. Each street pulsed with life. London was a symphony, a cacophony of dreams, ambitions, and everyday joys. It was a city that never slept, always moving, always changing. From the ancient Tower of London to the modern Shard, history and progress intertwined. The streets whispered tales of kings and queens, poets and revolutionaries. Each brick, each cobblestone held a memory. The Thames, a silvery ribbon, flowed through it all, a constant reminder of time's passage. London was a city that embraced its past while looking toward the future. It was a city of endless possibilities. And on that fateful Thursday, as the city stirred awake, no one knew that the rhythm was about to be broken. No one knew that darkness lurked around the corner, waiting to shatter the peace. No one knew that London was about to face its darkest hour. The morning commute was its usual chaotic self. Packed trains, hurried footsteps, a sea of faces lost in newspapers and smartphones. Tourists, maps in hand, navigated the crowds. Black cabs weaved through traffic, their drivers' voices crackling over the radio. It was a typical London morning, full of energy and purpose. At Liverpool Street Station, commuters poured off trains, rushing to their offices. Among them were young professionals, briefcases in hand, their faces etched with ambition. Seasoned city workers, coffee mugs clutched tight, navigated the crowds with practiced ease. Students laden with books chatted excitedly, their futures full of promise. The air buzzed with the anticipation of a new day. On the buses, school children in their uniforms swung their legs, their chatter a mix of innocence and teenage angst. Elderly couples, clutching shopping bags, smiled at the familiar sights. Life played out in these small moments, a tapestry woven from the ordinary and the extraordinary. But beneath the surface of this ordinary day, a sinister plot was about to unfold. 4 young men, their backpacks heavy with hate, moved through the city, their faces betraying nothing of the darkness they carried within. They were shadows in the crowd, unnoticed, unremarkable. They were about to change London forever. The first explosion ripped through the underground tunnel between Liverpool Street and Aldgate stations at 8:50 a.m. A deafening roar, a blinding flash, then darkness. The air filled with dust, the smell of burning metal, and the screams of the injured and terrified. The force of the blast twisted metal, shattered windows, and threw passengers from their seats. Panic surged through the train. People coughed, struggling to breathe in the thick smoke. The lights flickered and died, plunging the carriage into darkness. Survivors stumbled through the wreckage, desperate to escape the suffocating heat and the stench of explosives. Some carried the wounded, their clothes stained with blood. Others cried out for loved ones, their voices lost in the chaos. Above ground, Londoners went about their day, oblivious to the horror unfolding beneath their feet. Shops opened, buses rumbled by, the city's rhythm continued. But the illusion of normalcy was shattered as sirens wailed, their piercing cries echoing through the streets. News of the explosion spread like wildfire, carried on whispers and frantic phone calls. Fear began to grip the city. The emergency services sprang into action, racing towards the unknown. Firefighters, paramedics, and police officers rushed towards the heart of the blast, their faces grim, their training kicking in. They faced scenes of unimaginable carnage, a twisted mass of metal and human suffering. But amidst the horror, stories of courage and compassion began to emerge. In the aftermath of the Aldgate explosion, stories of survival and loss emerged from the dust and debris. Daniel, a young musician heading to a recording session, found himself thrown against the carriage wall, his guitar case shattered. Dazed and bleeding, he helped a woman with a broken arm, their shared fear forging an unlikely bond. They stumbled through the darkness, guided by the faint glow of emergency lights and the sound of other survivors. Gill Hicks, on her way to work at the Bank of England, was just feet from the bomber. The explosion ripped through the carriage, severing both her legs. As she lay trapped beneath the wreckage, drifting in and out of consciousness, she made a promise to herself to fight for life. Rescuers worked tirelessly for hours, their courage unwavering, finally freeing her from the mangled train. But for many, there would be no happy ending. Families anxiously awaited news of loved ones, their hopes dwindling with each passing hour. The heartbreaking task of identifying the victims began, each name added to the growing list, a stark reminder of the human cost of that day. Among the fallen were Shahara Islam, a young woman with a passion for helping others, on her way to a work meeting, and Michael Stanley, a loving father and husband, whose infectious laugh had brightened the commute for countless strangers. Their lives filled with dreams and aspirations were cut tragically short, leaving behind a void that could never be filled. Unity in the rubble. London unites in grief and support. As news of the Aldgate bombing spread, a wave of shock and disbelief washed over London. People huddled around radios and televisions, desperate for information, their faces etched with worry and disbelief. The city that never stopped, that prided itself on its resilience, seemed to hold its breath, but the initial shock soon gave way to an outpouring of grief and compassion. Strangers offered comfort to one another on the streets. Lines snaked around blood donation centers as Londoners queued for hours to offer their help. Candles flickered in the July evening, casting a warm glow on the faces of mourners gathered in Trafalgar Square. Taxi drivers offered free rides home, their black cabs becoming symbols of solidarity. Restaurants donated food and water to emergency workers and those displaced from their homes. Community centers became hubs of support, offering counseling and a place for people to gather and share their grief. In the face of unimaginable tragedy, Londoners responded with characteristic strength and compassion, demonstrating the true meaning of community. The city's vibrant multiculturalism, often a source of debate and division, became a source of strength. Mosques opened their doors to those seeking solace, regardless of faith. Imams stood alongside priests and rabbis, their voices united in condemnation of the attacks. London's diversity, once seen by some as a weakness, now shown as a beacon of unity and resilience. Scars on the city, the visible and invisible wounds. In the immediate aftermath of the 7/7 bombings, London bore the physical scars of the attacks. The mangled wreckage of the bombed tube carriages served as a stark reminder of the devastation. Buildings near the blast site stood damaged, windows blown out, facades scarred by fire and debris. The familiar sights and sounds of the city were replaced by the eerie silence of closed streets and the constant wail of sirens. But as the city slowly began to rebuild, it became clear that the wounds ran deeper than the physical damage. The psychological impact of the attacks left an invisible scar on the city's psyche. Commuters, once accustomed to the jostle of the tube, now eyed each other with suspicion, their journeys shadowed by fear. The carefree atmosphere that had once characterized London's public spaces was replaced by a palpable tension. For the families of the victims, the pain was ever present. Parents struggled to comprehend the loss of their children, their homes filled with silence. Spouses faced the future alone, their lives irrevocably altered. Children grew up without parents, forever marked by the events of that day. The attacks left an indelible mark on their lives, a constant ache that time could never fully heal. The city's spirit, though shaken, refused to be broken. Londoners found solace in shared grief, in acts of kindness, and in the determination to reclaim their city and their lives. The spirit of defiance burned bright, a testament to the enduring strength of the human spirit in the face of adversity. As the city rebuilt, the legacy of resilience and hope emerged stronger, inspiring future generations to face challenges with the same unyielding spirit.